what I would ask them is if they're so confident that you're secure, ask them if they'll pay for all the damages related to a security breach. If they will, refer them to the CIA, NASDAQ, everyone else that is looking for that guarantee, because it's simply not there. The body of knowledge in security is so large, you really need a separate set of eyes. So, like I mentioned, it's really kind of a combination of professionals that are dealing with these exposures, from legal, insurance, security, and then after the fact, PR, to protect your reputation.
I mean, security is a conundrum, right? I mean, so think about all the measures that banks and brokerages have gone through to try to make their consumer accounts secure, so that when you or I log into our Vanguard account, we now have to jump up and down on our left foot while scratching behind our right ear, recognizing a picture and remembering a username and a password. So we are the weak link in all of these systems. People are the weak link in all these systems, and many of the security tactics that the security industry has tried to develop over the last 30, 40 years of doing this stuff, generally they have to walk this and balance this line between, can the person who actually needs to use the system actually do it? So often what that results in is the Excel file, or the that has all your passwords in it, or the printed out piece of paper that has all your passwords on it. I won't ask for a show of hands for how many people in this room use that system. That's a security disaster, right? But so we have to. I think to come back to, okay, so what can we do about it? There is no substitute for ongoing self-education and investing in your own media literacy, investing in my own media literacy, so that I know exactly what these tools, how they work. So the way that the user interface has evolved, and the conventions of developing applications on the web, they've developed these things that are apparent to their designers, telling you, oh, you're signed in right now, and this is where you enter your password. But they're not always apparent to me or you or anybody else in the room. So it is incredibly urgent that we continually push ourselves to get trained by experts, and whether that often I serve that purpose for my dad, and now I have my nieces and nephews who are doing the same for me, because they're using Facebook to do things that I couldn't imagine how to do. I think it's all about having the humility to sort of reach out and continue to invest in your own media literacy. That's a huge thing. I mean, back to that, why it's so important to have a smartphone of some kind. If you have a website, and maybe you don't, right? I think a lot of people who are doing, defense contract related work where security is of absolute importance, you're talking mainly paper. But if you're not in that world and you do have a website, media literacy, again, go look at your website on a phone. How does it look? Is it helpful? Does it help the person with the phone looking at it? Probably not. It probably sucks. It's important for us. So, but again, it's about knowing the physics of this world and respecting that they're a little bit different and a little bit unexpected. And that's the only way that we can navigate the risky waters here. That would be my take.
And I would say to you that I deliberately do not have a website.
See, that's where I'm going to comment right now and just be kind of really blunt. This conversation right here is all fear-based, and that's our job number one, is to eliminate fear, and that's what I do every day. Protecting your confidential documents and the work that you do for clients, do it however you want to do it. Take their advice, hire security. But that's stopping you from moving forward in something that you said in your question, which was, my business is based on word of mouth. Well, guess what the number one tool of word of mouth is on steroids? Social media. Sorry to bring it back to it. You have clients, you have customers, past customers, and friends. They're the ones that give you your business. Well, you can take that to the next level by not just being fearful of all this new technology and protecting your amazing documents, but using these tools to actually tell people how great you are at what you do and how you can help them. And here are some tips. Not digging into what I get paid so much money to help you with, but I can lead you to a direction to where you're going to refer a friend to me. That's where you got to get comfortable with it and realize it's the most powerful marketing tool you have. Not for stealing your documents, but for getting new business. Put a line between those two.
Of course, the most sophisticated security software in the world won't help if somebody, either in your company or you yourself or one of your family members, falls prey to a phishing scam.
That doesn't mean don't have a website.
Right, just means you have to invest a little bit in training.
Right.
Right. Any other questions? Scott?
Yes, Scott
Stand,
Murphy, Ameritel.
stand up, stand up.
Ameritel. Our business is, we develop telecommunications for customers' voice and data. And one of the problems that I'd like you to address, you've talked about the independence and the use of the smartphone, which also creates a problem for management within a company in not controlling, but working with the staff. You want to bring them into the company as opposed to have all independent users out there. How do you approach this issue of control as a company? We run into this all the time. How do you?
It's a huge issue. So SurveyMonkey is one of the first examples. So we started in 1999, and we're one of the first examples of this trend of the consumerization of the enterprise, which is, I think, sort of the trend, one label for the trend that you talk about. Certainly, the adoption of the iPhone is another example. Interesting, Forrester, which forever has been the voice of do not let Macintoshes into your IT infrastructure, oh, IT leader, has finally, after more than a decade of saying that, finally gone the other way. They said, you know what? These people who go rogue and bring in systems that are unsupported by your IT infrastructure are your most productive, most inventive, and innovative people. And so, okay, IT guys, grudgingly figure out a way to grant them access to the infrastructure that you have, but in a way that mitigates your risk. So I think one of the points that Scott has made is that a lot of his stuff is in the cloud. Coming up, so as an IT organization, having tactics that try to keep the data from being stored persistently on that iPad or on, and making sure that the data is in the cloud, so that way it's much more easy if an employee, if you have to terminate an employee for some reason, blow away their password and they're out of the system, they can't get in. So with systems like Google Apps and as one example of many, or Salesforce.com, Mr. Benioff has been probably one of the most loud examples of no software, like do it all in the cloud, and that's one of the reasons for that. But consumerization of the enterprise is something that I think we need to find a way to lean forward and give it a big hug rather than shy away from it. It's happening. It's already happened. I mean, the horse has left the barn.
Yeah, you can't control it. What you can do is set the policies, which you brought up. I mean, one of my best friends runs human resources for Best Buy. Thousands of employees, and they've decided to do just what you said: embrace it, hug it, let them go, because employees will talk about their work when they had a horrible day, about the product, whatever it is. When you set up policy, if you have a lot of employees, they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're blogging, they're out there. You just need to let them know. And what Best Buy does is they incentivize them to talk about it, to talk about how they're there for the consumer. They actually want their employees to talk about it, but they also very clearly let them know that it's being tracked. So, the HR department at Best Buy now tracks every social mention out there from every employee. And I think just last week he had to fire a general manager because of comments that were being made on the internet. So, you have to have policy, you have to track your message, make sure you see what people are saying about you, but let your employees talk.
I would want to add on to that too. So we've definitely, each of the Fortune 100 companies uses SurveyMonkey. Now, what that means is that a department head or a marketer or, and in some cases, hundreds of independent individuals who are employed by Fortune 100 companies have signed up for SurveyMonkey accounts and have run surveys, in many cases talking to their existing customers, in some cases doing internal surveys to their employees. Each one of those people basically have to, their use of company data and has to be governed by a policy like the one that Scott suggests. And we've found that in practice, that's been practical. I mean, in some cases, employees are way ahead of where their policy-making leaders are, but policy catches up with adoption. And that trend has been happening certainly with SurveyMonkey customers since 1999. And half of our users are from for-profit companies, and probably 10% are from government. So this is happening. Policy's got to be there to empower those folks, but keep them in check reasonably.
Howard, do you see clients struggling with this issue?
Yeah, I think you made a great point, Colby, regarding training. And I think companies need to look at a new course of training for their employees. RSA, a prominent security firm, was hacked because the HR department received an email, and it was about a high school reunion. They clicked on the email, and that's how their security was breached. One of my clients manufactures in China. They got an email from the manufacturing facility, had all the other emails underneath it, so it just looked like the continued train of communication. It said send the remaining half of the money for the payment of the manufacturing to a different bank. They, of course, did that and lost half their money. There was 1-digit difference in the email address. So I think the human link is kind of a big hole, not necessarily just the security, and training needs to address that in companies.
Great. So I hand back there. Yes.
Hi, Barbara Wilson, VI. Do you have any personal recommendations that you could provide of where we would direct people for media literacy?
That sounds like a perfect question for VICA, and because for media literacy. Yeah, well, Scott may be the person to talk to.
I mean, that's the one thing. With my company, we have a really different approach to things. We don't go out and sell. Here's who we are. Here's what we do. You should buy us. All we do all day long is educate and eliminate fears, so we can get you. Because look at it this way: television took 38 years to reach critical mass, 50 million people. Facebook took 8 months to reach 100 million people. So technology is moving so fast right now, you can't keep up with it. All you have to do is stay interested in it, understand this paradigm shift in the way we communicate as a society, which causes these risks, which has us use all these tools. Get on board with that the world has changed the way we communicate, and all the education in the world is out there. Everybody, every one of these, I saw one of the questions on here, like, do I start with LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, where do I start? Every one of these has really easy educational step-by-step to get started and learn more about them. So it's just keep educating yourself. And people like myself and my company and a lot of other companies out there, we're educating along the way. Because it's not just for Coca-Cola, it's the way everybody needs to operate.
All right, but let me ask a tough question, though. How does a company, sole proprietorship all the way, I mean, we won't be giving advice to Fortune 500 companies here, but how do medium-sized and smaller companies judge the amount of resources that they should be putting into social media versus other more traditional marketing strategies? I mean, do you have to go all in? Do you have to increase your marketing budget just to take care of that stuff? Or, I think the struggle here is with things changing so quickly, how do you judge what you need to do in order to at least just keep up and stay part of the conversation?
In my opinion, from what I've seen, so in helping, my sister owns a Pilates studio, and we basically did a lot of listening and looked at, okay, well, how are new leads coming into her, right? So, and then she talked to her customers and found out, how did you find your way to my studio? And through that, and it was also kind of apparent in where her studio is, Yelp is used somewhat. So it was important to have a profile in Yelp, and to kind of actively just watch that and listen. And when comments happened, reply to them there. And setting up that Google alert for your company, in her case, Sarah Aldrich Pilates, was incredibly helpful. You see any reference to it. You could also learn a lot by just doing searches for Google for your competitors to see where their customers are talking about the competitive services on the web. Those are some of the easiest way to do it. I'm sure, Scott, you've probably got a lot more thoughts to add on that.
The general rule of thumb is, when the internet first came out, 17 years ago when Gore invented it? So it's just a teenager now. But when we first saw the internet, we said, oh, I got to put a website up because now people can come to my website address and learn more about my company. Where it's dramatically changed in the last 5-7 years is it's not about me coming to you. You have to be where I am. So I might be on Flickr looking for photos of great Thai restaurants on Ventura Boulevard. You better have some photos up there. The reality is you just have to put yourself out there where your customer might be. You said something at the very beginning, which is pick your hub, pick your kind of network of choice. Most likely that should be Facebook because it's the Megillah. But you also have to be everywhere else. Unfortunately, that's not to scare you, but you should have your Google Places set up. You should be on Yelp and make sure, because people are talking about you everywhere. So if you're there, you're going to have them covered and turn them into a customer.
I think you have to do triage. I think you got to do triage because if you for example, if you have a small team, right, and you've got to be dealing with your receivables and all the other parts about running your business, you got to pick your battles, right? So given that, I think it's just incredibly important to just listen and help to prioritize, right? You can always come back and see, once you've gotten a basic a basic thing in place, say on Facebook or whatever, then incrementally try to add something or just try to keep listening and find the other places where the conversation's happening. Sure. And build it up over time. You can't just sort of arrive everywhere all at once simultaneously. And that's something you got to just be pragmatic about it and just hit the biggest targets first.
And a lot of our clients are, all right, I got a Facebook page, but what is this tweety thing? I'm not going to do it. So all we do there is set them up with a Twitter profile and automate any time that they post something on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll put it over on Twitter. Not the best thing for people who do love Twitter. They don't like, they don't like that they have to go over to Facebook to see your message. But, to your point, if you don't want to handle it, automate it. And that, for example, if you want to know, in your Facebook account, go to facebook.com/Twitter. It'll ask you to link your Twitter account. Bam, it's done. It's just that easy. So now every time you post, it posts over there. You don't have to worry about that until you're ready to.
We're here? Yes.
Yeah, I had a question. My name's Ken Head, City of Glendale. Can you comment on Yelp, YP pages, YP.com, YellowPages.com, and the advantages of those mediums versus maybe your traditional Facebook, Twitter?
Well, Yelp again is I'd say 9 times out of 10 when we do our reports for all of our clients, and all of our clients, some 70 clients are all small businesses, and we look at their Google Analytics. Where's their traffic coming from? The number one source is typically Yelp, believe it or not. Yelp is one of those that people love to hate because you have no control. This is when your customer service, what you do in your business, really counts. Because if I get bad service, and I've done it once where I've threatened to post a nasty comment on Yelp. I didn't actually do it. But that's the reality is, that's the perfect example where the consumer is now in control of your message and your experience. You don't get to stop me from communicating about you if I have a good or bad experience. And you should note, 92% of all reviews on Yelp are positive. It's just those negative ones really sting. So, I've had clients that wanted to shut their business down because somebody wrote such a negative review. You can't do anything about it. You can't buy advertising on Yelp and get them to put the new ones up at top. It's a reality of your business today. And Yelp is the perfect example because it's slapping you in the face with, I, the consumer, now can talk about your business, good or bad. It's true everywhere, but Yelp is the one that really kind of gets people.
Yahoo's still a player in that.
Sure. Yahoo's got what? 30-something% of search.
Having been at Yahoo for about 6 years, I would say no. I hate to say it. I have love for the place, but I think certainly from the point of view of search traffic, yes. But in terms of like a local directory kind of thing, yeah, there's still some traffic there, but it's not growing. It's shrinking. And I would actually I'm going to take a little bit more of an optimistic point of view on, and this was true. So at the company, at TripIt, a travel startup I was at before joining SurveyMonkey, we viewed any criticism that appeared online as an opportunity to rebut, to respond, and those opportunities can be golden, right? Because often, especially on Yelp, which the beginnings of Yelp, and this has continued, has been sort of an opportunity for creative writing on the part of its consumer reviewers. You're rewarded with points on Yelp if your review is considered funny or useful or emotional in some way. Often some of the negative reviews come off as unhinged and crazy. And if you, as a business owner, can respond in a rational way, in a way that says, hey, we heard your feedback, and we addressed it, and there actually is an opportunity to participate and rebut the negative feedback that you get on Yelp. And you got to do it.
Yeah.
You can't just sort of lay back. You got to do it and find a way to rise above whatever sort of crazy criticism there might be embedded in what might be a valid point. I do think that which service is worth spending the most time on probably varies by geography, right? So City Glendale, there might be an amazing coverage of Yelp in Glendale, but maybe YP.com, I would probably doubt
They're headquartered in Glendale.
they're headquartered in Glendale, but from the point of consumer adoption and the kind of focal point for conversations, they're not as visible in other locales. Maybe in Glendale they're crushing it. I don't know. Certainly up in Northern California or back in New York, Yelp is a little bit more of a factor often, but your mileage may vary. But I think what I just said about using the negative opportunities on Yelp as a positive step for you applies to YP.com, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You got a question?
Yes, I did have a question.
Can you stand up and
I can.
project?
Maybe. Wendy Benzoni, actually have two titles. One, I work for a university, Woodbury University, in fashion marketing, but I specialize in social media. And the other side, I'm in the fashion industry that work with retailers. And one of the questions that comes up a lot is a lot of retailers are now collaborating with bloggers or people that already have an identity out there. And one of the problems with that is they don't know how to monitor which are the ones that they should invest in. They don't want to invest in a blogger or someone that might say bad things or someone that doesn't have a good reputation. And I know one of the things we've been using is Clout. Is there any other monitoring devices or anything that has been out there that you would suggest to use? Or?
Well, Cloud is a grading score of
Right.
influence.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about monitoring just all the
Like,
blogging?
For instance, there's retailers on Ventura, and they have a clothing store. They don't have time to Twitter. They don't want to do Facebook. They don't want to do any social media. So they've
Shame on them.
I know, but they've been collaborating with other, maybe the younger generation that is that customer. So that customer is already blogging and already tweeting and saying things that are relevant to them. So they've been using Cloud to find out, okay, well, they have 500, direct influencers that would be great for our retail store. And Cloud is the only thing that I know out there that you can, I don't know if there's another way of ranking.
I would suggest there are probably two other things to consider. One is PageRank, meaning the Google search results, right?
Mm-hmm.
So specifically, if you can do queries in Google on terms that matter for that store, for that retailer, or for that fashion house, right? And you can scope those searches by location.
Okay.
And then Google will spit out dutifully what it believes are the best ranking web pages out there, which could include Twitter pages or blogs or Facebook pages too, of folks who the internet judges to be authorities on that topic, on that term, right? So simple Google search results pages, and by coming up with all the different terms that matter for that brand. That would be one thing. The second thing would be a little bit more of a case study for actually a restaurant that has an iPad by the cash register and has actually collected a couple of different questions, and they just have an ongoing survey that runs on that iPad. So when you're leaving the restaurant, you can give immediate feedback. So what you could do is create a quick survey that identifies, maybe you've pulled out like 10 blogs, whatever the number is, and say, have you heard or do you read any of these blogs regularly? And then that we can get direct, immediate feedback at the point of sale, and it's kind of an interesting opportunity, to just have the touch device right there, capture the data, and it takes literally 20 seconds to get some really interesting insights that will help you prioritize which blogger to reach out to and use.
Also, I work for a national PR firm that does a lot of work in social media, and although this isn't necessarily appropriate for, say, a retail level, single owner business, there are tools out there where you can measure what we call, a PR speak, share a voice in the social media community. There are tools like one of the most prominent ones is Radian 6, and you can get all kinds of data. I mean, that's one of the things about social media is that it can be so amorphous, and people don't really know if they're really having any impact with all the work that they're doing. But there are actually tools to measure whether or not you're having an impact on whether your company's brand is rising in terms of how, if they think about a particular product category, where your company lies in the rankings of, brand attributes and that sort of thing. So there's a variety of tools out there. I'm sure Scott's firm probably has access to that, as does mine and a variety of other folks. So, in PR, measurement is always one of the big bugaboos, but the industry is very focused on trying to do a better job of giving people tangible results. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Please stand.
Dennis Reed, film musician, secondary markets fund. Our company is, we actually use social media. We have QR codes on our ads and everything. We process about $80 million in payments for about 20,000 participants. We're also very security conscious. We have all our web hosting is in-house. All our database management's in-house. I'm curious if you see the cloud is where we're going to wind up with our database at some point. And how will we, be ensured that participant security will be safe on that? Is we're like level like bank type of security is required. Will that be there, or will it be something else like the cloud that's going to take care of businesses like ours?
Go, Howard, go.
I would look at the contract between you and the cloud provider. I happened to go onto SurveyMonkey and preparing for this panel. Looks like their liability is limited to €100. Was that like $140 or something? So I don't know who works at the cloud provider, who the janitor is that walks in there. So there's a lot of variables, and you really need to look at that contract, look at your backups, and consider how you want to address that situation. I would get some security expertise when evaluating that from a security perspective.
I believe within 5 years, more maybe not for your company and the servers you have there, but within 5 years, you're not going to have wires under your desk and big boxes under there.